None of this would have happened. But I beat them. And that's the problem. Now I'm sitting here going, okay, well, after I beat the BBC, after I destroyed the BBC, Tristan gave me a high five. He's like, oh, you wrecked them. They're going to look so stupid. I said, bro, we've sunk the HMS Hood. HMS Hood in World War II, HMS Hood was the British battleship. It was the flagship of the Royal Navy. And the Royal Navy was obviously renowned. It has been for hundreds of years. It was the best battleship. And it was up against German battlecruiser, the Bismarck. And the Hood should have outgunned the Bismarck. And it was the best German ship against the best British ship. By absolute fluke, the Bismarck, on its first volley or second volley, landed a shell perfectly through the top of the Hood and blew up the ammo magazine. And like in the first shot, within minutes, destroyed the entire HMS Hood. Killed like, I think it was like 3,000 people, 2 survivors. You can find the video on YouTube, the Hood blow into pieces. When Churchill found out the Hood was sunk, he said, sink the Bismarck, don't care what it costs. He sent every ship, every plane, every sub diverted from every other mission. Doesn't care if we lose every plane we have, don't care if we lose the RAF. We cannot lose the Hood without him losing the Bismarck. Sink the Bismarck. When the Bismarck sunk the Hood, all of the crew were celebrating, except the captain. The captain updated his will. He updated his will and telegraphed home to his wife and said goodbye. Because he knew. When I destroyed the BBC, my brother was celebrating. I knew. I said, Tristan, no. You don't beat the British Broadcasting Corporation and make fools of them like this without some new bullshit. We sunk the Hood. And he's like, oh, we'll see. Oh, who's this? Evie? Evie. I fucking knew it. I'm winning too well. I'm scared by the incompetence of these clowns. But I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. Am I supposed to lose? I'm genuinely looking for guidance here. Am I supposed to roll over and fucking lose? When they're lying about me and slandering my name and trying to put me back in a fucking dungeon? Back with the cockroaches? All I could do is protest my innocence, but they're such idiots. I make them look so stupid, and then there's egos involved. You think Lucy Williamson hasn't been called into a meeting room with some BBC producer saying, you made a fool of us? Yes, she has. There's egos involved. Big businessmen with business interests have ego investment in hurting me now. And I keep winning. So I don't know. I'm in a very precarious scenario. Do I continue to win? Do I let them win a bit? Do I just roll over and shut up? What am I supposed to do? I don't know what the right move is. It's difficult.
You sincerely don't know what the right move is.
I sincerely have decided that the best thing I can do is stay true to my faith and stay true to God and tell the truth and fight. The right move for me, I believe, is to fight and fight to the end, because I think that suicide is always the wrong option. I believe if you're put in a bad position, the best thing you should possibly do is fight to the best of your ability, which is what I'm going to do. However, if I was looking at it purely logically without any kind of ideological motivations, perhaps if I would have shut up when they wanted me to, I wouldn't be in this scenario. But that's just not who I am. You know, Alexander the Great didn't have to keep conquering. Genghis Khan didn't need to take Vienna. He could have just chilled. He kept going. So I feel like when I'm in a position where I don't know what I'm supposed to do, the best thing I can do is just look to God and tell the truth. And that's what I'm doing.
I want to ask you one more question regarding human trafficking, because this is a heinous charge, or
Absolutely.
allegedly. I
Absolutely.
mean, this is not lightweight stuff. You famously ran a webcam business.
Correct.
Perfectly legal.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean,
Yep.
I can't tell you how many women are doing OnlyFans these days.
Yep.
Webcam business.
Yep.
How much of a reason was that a correlation for the human trafficking, the sex trafficking, the webcam business? How much did they correlate that to? Well, he must be human trafficking. He's running a webcam business. There's no correlation.
Zero correlation.
So they haven't even charged any of the webcam business
Zero.
to any of this.
Zero. And what's crazy is...
It's crazy. It's people assume that, right?
It's crazy because one, it's not illegal. And two, you can go drive down the high street of Romania. There's webcam studios it's one of the most popular businesses in the country. It's not even illegal. And that was a past life. You're talking about something that happened 10 years ago.
It was that long ago?
It was about 10 years ago, yeah. It was at the very beginning of it. The very beginning of the whole idea of that industry.
Minect is an application which allows you to take a minute to connect with influencers from all around the world. My name is Andrew Tate, and I'm available to speak directly to you on Minect.
I think it's just perception. I understand I have this perception. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people who are also dislike me, a lot of the reason they dislike me so much is my perception. I've had people who say, I hate what you say. I say, what do I say? And after talking to them a while, they say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Of course.
It's the perception of aggression. It's the perception of masculinity that they're afraid of. It's not even the words. They might like the words. Mm-hmm. It's my delivery. So I understand perception can be reality to a degree. I accepted that maybe the first month I was in jail. I understand when you have a message which is complicated, and masculinity as a whole is a very complicated tapestry, that the best way to instill it and teach it is to break it down to its core beliefs. So I've evolved way beyond Lamborghinis and chicks, right? But masculinity as a whole is a very complicated tapestry. You need to have the emotionality. You need to have the times you feel like crying and you don't. You need to have the times you can be aggressive. You need to have the times that you can be violent to protect your family. It's very complicated. And you can't teach that, especially to the young generation, in spite of the constant propaganda they have coming in their ears, very easily. So I break it down to a very core message. And the core message is that I have financial freedom, so it's hard to tell me what to do. And I have sexual access because I'm respected by women. And I have a good network because I'm respected by men. I break it down to those core things. And those core things are what I build that's how you build the tapestry of masculinity. Because if you don't have those 3 core things, you can never build the rest of it. That's the beginning of it. If you don't have those 3 things, it's hard to build the rest. So anybody who doesn't look into my message properly, I mean, I'm sure these people who are after me have never listened to me speak at length, ever. Ever. They just look at a picture. He's on a boat. There's 3 girls on the boat. There's no way those girls are happy with that, because my wife hates me. And there's 3 of them. So he has to go to jail. And that's what's happening. It's that baseline. I truly believe it's that baseline. But how else can I teach my message, as complicated as it is, without first breaking down and proving you have success in the most core levels of it, right? Before you learn to box, you jab and you cross. Before you do all the complicated stuff, you do the basic stuff. So a lot of it is people looking at my message, not understanding how detailed it is, not understanding how positive it is, looking at the baseline instincts which I teach and which I use to advertise my success as a whole to people to show and say, look, I clearly know what I'm talking about to a degree because I have things that you want. And you're a man, so you can't tell me you don't want them. Every man wants this. Every man wants one of these. And they take all this and they try and weaponize it and use it against me. And you're right. It's feminism as a whole that has this idea that if a man is a man unapologetically, and he doesn't apologize for being a man, that he's a bad person. Which we've discussed at length, and I've discussed a bunch of times, but it's truly the most crazy thing about all of this is when shit hits the fan, it's exactly the kind of men they hate that they want. Every single time. Every single time. You can go out to a bar in America and you can stand there and argue with a feminist and argue with her to the end of time. And if someone ran in there with a gun, she would say, hey, you go. You're the misogynist. You go protect me. The feminist guy who's on my team, I don't want him to go. I want you to go, please.
We don't want Dylan Mulvaney on the front lines.
Of course not. And it's hypocritical. And it's hypocritical, and it's done on purpose. It's purported by the Matrix, and it's done to attack the baseline masculinity of men because they don't want men to be masculine, because when you're masculine, you say no to things. I saw a really interesting study once that was it had testosterone level, and it was linked to your capability to disagree with people. The higher your testosterone level, the more likely you are to disagree, because at a baseline level, back before we were more civilized than we are today, if you disagreed with someone, you had to fight him.
Interesting.
You had to fight that man. For you to sit and say you are wrong, there had to be a possibility of violence. If you didn't have the capability for violence, you didn't say they were wrong. You just agreed with stuff, right? So they don't want men who are standing up and saying, I don't believe in X. They want to reduce our testosterone levels to our eunuchs so that we sit and say, well, I may not agree with it, but what can I really do about it? It is what it is. And then they have absolute control.
Do you think history favors that ideology? Or history, eventually, a group of men stand up and say, yeah, listen, we've had enough. This is not going to be happening.
I do believe that in history it's always been the same. I believe it's always been a select group of good men who are up against evil. And I think they've always been outnumbered, and it's always been difficult, and they've always suffered. All of them. When I was in jail, the amount of letters I got from people, and it was just names of, and I'm not comparing myself to these people. This is the letters I got of Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, everyone who was unjustly imprisoned. Everyone's gone to jail. Because when you stand up for something, they end up trying to put you in jail. When you're a good person trying to do good, the evil, the matrix as a whole is going to try and throw you in jail. That's what they do. That's the punishment for it. And history's always been the same. It's always been a small group of outgunned people who stand up, who are, to the detriment of themselves, too principled to allow injustice and evil to thrive. And they stand up and they're outgunned and they're outnumbered, but they're like, no, I have to tell the truth. If you play a video game and you're the good guy, when you get to the boss at the end, he has more life than you. He has more hit points and he moves faster, and he's a cheater. He cheats. He cheats. The bad guy cheats, but you still win because you're good. And that's how the battle's always been. I would love for the world to be another way, but I don't think it's ever been that way. I think if you find any time in history, it's always been the same story. And now I'm in the position where, like I said earlier, what am I supposed to do? Do I have a life path in which I can genuinely help people? And do I have a life path in which I can genuinely do some damage to the evil to the world? Or am I just going to disappear like a coward and let them lie about me and do my time and shut up and delete my Twitter account and just go away?
You know how sometimes, like, I've been in sales for quite a while. If a guy who doesn't have any responsibilities and he's single. He has a $30,000 month. Boom, he's going to Vegas, having a good time. Yeah. And then he doesn't work as hard until he runs out of his $30,000. 3 months later, I got to go make the $30,000 again. Oh my God, panic. I got to pay my bills. I'm behind on the phone. Yeah. Let me buy this watch and make 40 grand. I'm going out again. So it's very inconsistent, right? And then as you're in sales longer,